This is the E-Commerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Hello and welcome to the E-Commerce Braintrust podcast. I'm Julie Spear, Head of Retail Marketplace Services at Acadia, alongside my co-host, Jordan Ripley, Director of Retail Operations. We are recording this at exactly 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday, July 14th, 48 hours after the Epic Prime Days have ended. And just as Amazon expanded the day to 4, the 2-day event to 4, we have expanded our panel to discuss the events, the happenings, the data, the insights, and everything to 4 amazing people. So joining us, we have some old friends of the show, friends of the pod. We've got Armin to talk through things from an operational standpoint. We've got Damiano to talk through things from a media standpoint. And joining us, first time ever, I think probably longtime fans, first time callers.
Let's say so, yeah.
Rhen to join the conversation from a media perspective, and Gavin to join the conversation from both an ops and an organic perspective as well. So with that long intro, welcome everyone. Really excited to dig in.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So just to kind of like loosen up the panel here, let's start with, what did you buy? Anything that you're excited about having purchased from Prime Day? And bonus, in your purchase process, did you lean into any of Amazon's AI features to help you shop and make your selection this year?
So I can jump in here. So I'm a huge fan of Rufus because I call it vibe shopping. So there's vibe coding, but I use Rufus for vibe shopping. I'm going on a hiking trip in the UK. And I know nothing about hiking. I'm not like a super outdoorsy person. So I asked Rufus what would Norman Reedus wear if he was going hiking. And it's surprising how well it shows like the keywords that I would know nothing about. But it gives me insight into a market that I'm not educated on. So I use it for mood and inspiration when I don't know the exact keywords. And I find Rufus is super helpful for conversational discovery when I'm not aware of the market. So I love Rufus for vibe shopping. And that's basically how I shop now, because I'm not a huge online shopper, even though this is what I do. But yeah, mood and inspo, Rufus is unmatched, especially when you don't know the keywords.
Love it. Love it.
Did you buy something, Rhen, or did you just click a lot of ads and then like go along your way?
Yeah, so there's this whole like tactical backpack niche, and they have all these like different features. There's like leaders to the backpack and things like that. So Rufus helped me find the right features that I needed for the backpacks.
Amazing.
I did not lean into Rufus in mine. And what I've recognized for myself as a customer, I apparently use Prime Day to buy any version of a vacuum cleaner. So a few years ago, it was like a standard vacuum cleaner. Last year, it was a handheld vac. This year, it was this cordless stick vac.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
game changer.
Yeah. I'm really my age where like, I get excited for my vacuum cleaner purchases. But no Rufus usage. I did use the review summaries. I'm a huge fan of the customer review summaries. And that actually did make my decision for me. It was based on that.
You don't want to be a vacuum vibe shopper. That's like a bridge that maybe we weren't meant to cross.
Although vacuums seem to be my vibe. I don't know. Any other purchases or AI happening for the crew here?
Yeah, I'd say I'm much more of a objective shopper or a cost-conscious shopper. And I was just looking for the cheapest body weight scale. I just like, give me options for cheap body weight scale with good reviews. It basically just showed me all the top sellers. So it's interesting how the back end will serve you these different options. But I purchased the first one that it gave me, and it was perfect. So it's very good when it's very clear and direct as to what you are looking for. Like Rhen said, it gives you that context.
Awesome. Well, why don't we dig into a little bit of what we saw from a data perspective over the Epic 4-day period? I think the best starting point is to talk about like, how did you see it play out? How did shoppers respond to this event being 4 days versus the typical 2 days in Prime Day? Did we see it mirror what we've typically seen with like the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, where the beginning and the end of the event are the biggies? Or did you see the kind of consistent volume across the 4 days? I'm asking this as though I have no idea. I've never looked at anything
True
relative
journalist.
to what was happening. But I'm interested from your experience, your clients, and what you're seeing across your accounts, how you saw this play out.
We actually saw a quite different distribution across the 4 days. So day one drove 36% of total volume. And then day 2, 3, and 4 was fairly balanced at 21, 20, and 23%. So that's pretty different shape than Black Friday weekend, where we saw a big rebound on Cyber Monday. And it's also a big shift from last Prime Day, which is about 50-50, 52 and 48 per first and last day. And I'm not totally surprised by this, as shoppers haven't been trained on the 4-day Prime event, and this was new territory. And that final day landed on a summer Friday, which probably introduced some fatigue and distraction. That said, total revenue across the board was way up. So if we look at median across all our brands' performance, total revenue increased by 2.3x, so a multiple of 2.3 compared to last year's Prime Day. And then when we normalize the 4-day window and overall brand growth year over year, the relative spike wasn't quite as strong as last year. So in 2024, brand saw 3.7x lift compared to previous run rate. And then this year we saw 2.9x. So the spike wasn't as large, but total revenues definitely saw a substantial increase. And then the big takeaway, the pie got bigger, no question, but the peak didn't feel quite as sharp. More volume, more revenue, but a bit more spread out.
Mm-hmm. How does that align with what you saw, Armin?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Like day 1 and day 4 that we kind of wanted to see the two spikes. We didn't really see the second spike. Day 1 was strong. And based on the data I looked at, it was slightly worse than day 1 last year. So 1% drop, so almost flat. But then, day 2 and day 3 stabilized. They were much lower. And then some uptick on day 4. But as Gavin said, maybe fatigue, Friday, it's already kind of end of the week. It didn't come up to the expectation of day 1 at all.
Go ahead, Damiano.
No, I was just going to say, from what I can also just say anecdotally, for some clients that maybe had this idea in their mind where day 1 was going to be very strong and then day 4 was going to be, let's say, the second strongest day. From an ads perspective, some of the ad managers kind of modeled their budget to follow this, let's say, upside down bell curve. And so essentially, when that happened, we did see a much stronger Friday than, for example, day 2 and day 3. So I also think that everyone's learning in this process. It's just 4 days. It's the first time Summer Prime Day was for 4 days. And I would say that at least the few clients that I have seen that had a very strong day 4, it was also due to the ads continuing to push into day 4. Whereas with the other clients that I saw had maybe spend be very equal between day 2, 3, and 4, that kind of reflected within their total sales as well. So I'm not discounting completely that you're not going to have this bimodal kind of large day 1, large day 4, and then kind of a day 2 and 3 a little bit more in the middle. But yeah, I would also just say that I don't think that it's the volume on Amazon. I don't think that it's the demand from the shopper that is necessarily got weaker as the event went. I also think that budget started to run out because you're effectively taking not the same budgets increased. Our budgets increased by 100% kind of year over year, but still you're trying to capture all of that volume in 4 days as opposed to 2.
Right. And I think that goes to a larger issue is maybe the wrong word, but the sort of like complicating factor where, Gavin, to your point, like the total pie was bigger, right? Like we saw more volume of sales on this. And so Amazon can point to a PR release and say, oh, great, success, like more sales, right? But at the same time, at a certain point, the actual consumer mindset, the mindset from brands starts to become diminished over time, where it's like, if you have a 20-day event, it doesn't feel like an event anymore, right? And so we have a sense of the data now, but I'm just wondering from your conversations with brands, like, what does it feel like from an expectation standpoint, and how much this delivered against that? Like, do you feel like brands were generally satisfied with this event? They were sort of fatigued by it? Like, what's the actual, again, to quote Rhen, the vibes of this one afterwards? Do you have a sense of that yet?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly an endurance event for us. I think I can speak for the entire team, but I think the sentiment around Prime Day it's gotten more of an allure to it. Brands were more excited this year, I think, because it's just been built up so much. As far as actual results and satisfaction, on my account, they were certainly very satisfied, but I think we set those expectations correctly by looking at Black Friday, Cyber Monday numbers and last Prime Day's numbers, and assuming it would be more spread out and a little less spiky, and rather more total revenue across the board, is what really led to that excitement post Prime Day. I know we're about to send recaps, so I'll get more information on that, but they seem to be very satisfied with how it went.
That's good.
Yeah, I would agree. And then also, Jordan, if you remember that the article that Adobe published for the expectation for the forecast, that this Prime Day will be around 28% growth over the Black Friday, Cyber Monday period. And when I checked our data, it's exactly the same number. I was like, so amazed.
Good on you, Adobe.
28% this year, 4 days versus 4 days, Black Friday, Cyber Monday last year. And then looking at just level of participation with our clients was also kind of, no surprises there. If you promoted full catalog, you went like 3x in your sales on average. And then if it was selected products or, half of your catalog, you would go anywhere between like 130 to 150 or so % up. And then for those who didn't participate, they still saw some increase compared to I'm comparing to 30-day averages. It was a 46% increase for those who didn't participate in the event.
I'd say an indication that the deals are still delivering.
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then looking at categories as well, top performing ones were baby, electronics, and beauty, at least in our portfolio.
Well, so going into Prime Day, I think all of us, we have all our preparation from an SEO standpoint, bid management, promotions, all of that. The other part of the preparation is the mental preparedness, recognizing that there is more than likely going to be a glitch or 5 during the event, which makes sense. You have record number of shoppers on the platform in a short period of time, glitches happen. So we had a 96-hour event. What did we see? How did this play out? Rhen and Damiano, did we see any Amazon ads outages? And then Armin and Gavin, what did we see from a promotion standpoint? Any glitches that had the team hustling their firefighting skills here?
So on the ad side, surprisingly, it was flawless. It was super smooth in the ads console. I'm not sure if you had the same experience, Damiano, but when I was operating the ads console, it was flawless, which is not common for Amazon to do.
Should we give that a moment?
Yeah. I was knocking on wood the entire event. I was like, no way it's going this well, but it was actually very smooth for me.
Yeah, and also for me, we have a very active team that was just constantly updating everyone on everything, and no one pointed to sponsored brand deals not showing up or sponsored brand video. Oh, you can't see the badging and sponsored brand video. Oh my goodness, we have to pivot completely. There was none of that this year. I also remember last year in 2024, I don't remember if it was day 1 or day 2, but the ad console's budgeting system completely bugged out and you couldn't understand how much you were spending, how much you had already spent, what budget did you still have remaining. So that was a complete nightmare. But this, for 4 days, it ran completely smoothly and great from the ad side.
I believe that happened evening of day 1, approaching the Pacific, the PST peaks, if I'm remembering correctly, and the sweat that was happening. Yes.
I would say it seems like the correlation is the longer the event, the less glitchy it actually is, because there's less stress on the systems, right? So I don't know, Amazon has really gotten better over years. This year, for example, very stable promo setup. Like it was not glitchy almost at all. There's always some minor issues, but not a huge one. And then on VC accounts, for example, the usual, you get crept out or eligibility issues last minute. That always happens. That's even off promos of events. And then we did see some very minor like issues with inventory caps before the event, which was unfortunate. But I would say the biggest thing that the team was watching for this year was the committed units in PDs. So you had to you're kind of stating, okay, this is the number of units I'm committing to. And then if that number was like too small for the event and you wanted to go bigger, like you had to monitor and adjust as the event went by, which was, new this year.
If you had to make in-flight updates to your promotion and say like, yeah, I'll give another 200 units to that, like still pretty smooth.
Yeah, pretty easy to manage. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Very cool. Like when we did our whole preparing for Prime Day episodes, Damiano, you're part of this and know it well. We highlighted a lot of things that have changed leading into this Prime Day, particularly on the ad side, where AMC targeting became much more of a factor. It's always, been available for the years, but this year was the first one, I believe, that we had a major tentpole event where you could apply to sponsored product ads and just, a lot more DSP capabilities. So just a general, more robust platform entering into this event. So I'm wondering, again, maybe a question for you, Rhen, and you, Damiano, again, is do you feel like any of these seemed like really big unlocks? Are we kind of still in a test and learn and we're looking through the data to see which of these ad developments had real effects? What do we feel about all the things that have rolled out and their impact on our ability to manage these budgets effectively?
Yeah, for all the non-PPC nerds out there, basically, what was the big kind of innovation that was largely rolled out to all advertising accounts was AMC audiences being able to include them in sponsored product ads. This was a game changer. We thought, spoiler alert, it kind of was, to the point in which essentially what we can do is we can take all of our DSP efforts, all of that lead in of, let's say, audience cohort that we drive our traffic to in terms of awareness and consideration. We take those cohorts and then we essentially retarget them through our sponsored product ads during the event. And so this was kind of very new for us. And pretty much, I believe a lot of clients, almost every client deployed it. In terms of feel, it didn't really feel different. Like in terms of the actual day management, though these audiences are so kind of sneaky that you just feel that the campaign is running normally, didn't really see any major fluctuations in terms of efficiency. But what did really feel different is every single day looking at how these audiences were performing. Yeah, some of them would perform better than others. Some of them would, for example, in almost all cases, our CTR was much higher. So essentially, whenever we were targeting people who were a part of these audiences in our awareness and consideration phases, they had higher CTRs. Sometimes they had a little bit better ROAS. Sometimes they had a little bit better conversion rate. But what was really interesting was the knowledge of how many dollars we are putting towards the audiences that we targeted before. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? I don't know if I expressed that very well.
So you're saying like before it was all this mishmash of things, right? Like we were getting our high value audiences and they were presumably contributing, but we had no idea the level of that
We would have to run hundreds of AMC reports to kind of get some form of inkling of, well, I think we're targeting this amount of people and that amount of people, etc. Here, we almost have a dollar amount of, hey, from June, we targeted this cohort. During Prime Day, we spent X amount of dollars on that cohort. They converted X amount. And that's pretty cool. That was kind of the big game changer. Now, what we have to do is still run our 100 AMC reports to try and understand all the nuances around it in terms of new to brand or in terms of, again, just the general funnel, marketing funnel. I would say it was very successful running these ads. And then I will also just mention this sponsored brand and sponsored brand video. Right before the event, Amazon launched the exact same feature for SB and SBB, which was, a few days before the event, you could do the same thing with SB and SBV, which was very, very surprising. And I don't know if anyone tested that out. Maybe Rhen, you did, but yeah, that's a big new feature.
Yeah, so sponsored brands, like them launching it right before, it was so early that it's hard to get statistical significance on that. But overall, I would agree with Damiano's points about AMC. I think the takeaway from that is that in the future, we're going to see more brands utilizing AMC in pay-per-click, specifically for audience segmentation. It's almost kind of like a new version of keyword targeting in a way. What I'm seeing a lot is brands cloning campaigns, the same keyword, but different audiences. So it's just giving us another layer of granularity in terms of how we're targeting a keyword. So totally agree with Damiano's points. I think we're going to see a lot more of it in the future.
I think you might have converted some non-PPC nerds to PPC nerddom with the transparency of the actual cost and the conversion rate and everything there with that AMC is providing. So moving to the non-paid side of things, in the lead-in to Prime Day, we had a little bit more complexity around inventory programs and cutoff dates and changes to promo types and the requirements ahead of the event. Gavin and Armin, did any of these impact brand performance from an ops and organic perspective? How did you see those changes play out during the event?
Honestly, on the promo side, there wasn't a huge change in terms of the deal badging. It was the same deal badging across PEDs and across best deals. What I did see change pretty considerably is the capacity requirements that Amazon sets. So last Prime Day, I set maybe one increase for capacity, which is essentially Amazon requiring you to submit a new bid to get more space in their warehouse. And last year, only one brand. This year, every single brand. So they're getting much, much more strict on what you can and can't have at warehouses. And they've also set those limits of you can't be below 30 days on hand. You can't be above 180 days on hand. So that's really starting to impact profitability and just long-term inventory management. I mentioned this before, but another piece is brands' willingness to promote to their D2C audience, I think has changed pretty significantly year over year. So this year, they just seem to be more willing to send an email to their D2C customers or send social media posts and DMs and things like that to generate that initial demand. And that seemed to be less of an uphill battle to try to convince them to get on board with that. But finally, I'll just say that one of our competitors I saw was getting very creative in how they displayed their deal pricing. So they changed their price about 2 hours before the event and then displayed a 31% discount off of that price. A little bit of a gray area tactic, but it worked. They got the Prime Day badging. And I think that speaks to the macro environment in terms of tariffs, increased pressure on margin, and all of those factors coming into play, where brands will try anything to get that Prime Day badge during the event. But overall, there wasn't a huge shift in terms of how deals displayed or any back-end processes. So definitely brands getting more aggressive on promotion and trying to figure out ways to really game the system in a sense.
From my side, like what I could say is that the brands we work with had, the level of promo participation was more or less the same, but I noticed that folks are more cautious in terms of what discount they're giving. So it's like, how do I get the badge, right? Like, it's what's the minimum to get the badge instead of, let's do 30% or 40%, like less of those steeper discounts were offered this year in our book. And then coupons were actually seeing a drop in terms of, just promo setup or promo being set up or used. And I'm assuming like this could be because of the fee changes that happened. Mm-hmm. So now we have a per coupon fee. And then PEDs, on the other hand, like this type of promo is seeing an increase year over year, like maybe third, fourth time now. I looked at data from 23, 24, and then now this year, it's just on the rise. And more than a half of our clients are using PEDs to promote. And then the sale price promo type also saw a bump this year. And my assumption here is that folks are trying to avoid the fees because, there's no fee to set this one up. Or like you just can't go with the minimum that's required for the badge. So let me do what I can with a flash sale.
Yeah, makes sense. The thing I want to get to while we still have some time here is, other than everyone sort of taking a deep breath in May, walking outside and seeing light, I'm wondering what are the sort of lead out activities that we all recommend. I mean, AMC already comes to mind as something like now we have some granularity to do some post event targeting that I think seems interesting. But yeah, anything that the four of y'all would highlight this open question of if you're not doing this post event, you're missing out. What comes to mind?
For the book I'm kind of overseeing, so I'm seeing subscribe and save coupons as a tactic where it's like, okay, I purchased the product and I like it, so let me buy it again, and now you're kind of enticed with a coupon to subscribe and save. Or, you didn't buy it. Oh, why did I not buy it? Let me check it out again. And then oh, it has a coupon, right? So that's kind of one of the tactics. And then the other one is just using the brand tailor promos, especially for the brand cart abandoners, where we had so much traffic and so many customers browsing. So this could be a very good tactic to just utilize that. And then on the VC side, one thing that I'm kind of leaning into this year is, apart from just analyzing the performance and using those learnings for potential full Prime Day and Black Friday, Cyber Monday, brands seem to be more interested into their sell-in KPIs. So yes, we did the Prime Day promos, but how does this affect our POs and demand from Amazon? So we're kind of doing analysis on that front, which is pretty interesting.
I think on the paid side, to support promotional activity from the account side, one easy lift that brands can do is utilizing sponsored display, retargeting for those cart abandoners, like Armin was mentioning. And also, now that we can do sponsored brands and sponsored products, running a full cart abandoner campaign at the end and throughout the lead out to support that promotional activity can be very effective.
Yeah, I would also add just one thing that I'm a little bit cognizant of post this particular Prime Day being 4 days is just the general demand of customers going back and purchasing on Amazon. We were very accustomed to the 2-day event, and generally it was on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and we could kind of say by the next week, Monday, not that we would be at full steam ahead again in terms of our daily sales rate, but it would be somewhat similar to the, let's say, pre-event kind of sales rate. Now we're in uncharted territory. We've kind of given customers a huge window to buy whatever they want and buy maybe more than what they were expecting to buy. So yeah, just being cognizant of that, just trying to really almost see daily now until we kind of get back to that run rate. And then from an ads perspective, just making sure that we tailor that spend and grow it as the demand grows. Not that we go too heavy now when the demand is very low. We want to kind of have spend mimic that customer demand.
I think we're going to need a part 2, a sequel of some sorts to this to understand what you learned in the analysis, Armin, around changes to sell-in rate. And then Damiano, what you're saying around, hey, when do we see this return to normal, air quotes normal, because of the change of the event this time? I'll be interested in the follow-up there. Maybe we add it as a footnote in the next Retail Roundup, Jordan.
Or release Prime Day, the Phantom Menace.
Well, maybe for our last question, we can end close to where we started, because it is 2025 and we can't have any conversation without really digging deeply into AI as much as possible. So I want to bring it back to AI for our final question. Looking and then ask us to look forward to what we think for our next tentpole event, likely in October. Going back to the Adobe report, they also predicted that based on a survey of about 5,000 US customers, that agentic AI traffic would grow 3,200% year over year. So really what that means is that people would be using AI solutions to help them surface deals like you did, Rhen, and do comparison shopping. So I'd be curious, when we think about Prime Day and tentpole events, what are the key elements that you're considering how AI might impact Prime Day in October, Black Friday, Cyber Monday in November? How do you see it playing out for our future tentpole events?
So one thought I have is new long tail keywords could be created on the spot by these agentic AIs just through the conversational queries that are so personalized. So what I would like to test for this next 4-day event is using broad modified match over phrase to account for all of the different query orders that could arise from these agents. So if anyone's unfamiliar with modified broad match, it's like a phrase match. So say you have tennis shoes. Phrase match would only bid on keywords that had tennis shoes in that order. But modified broad match, you put a plus sign in front of tennis and a plus sign in front of shoes. And now it'll bid on any keyword that has tennis and shoes in the keyword. So you're not restricted by order, but you're also not too broad where now broad match, it's kind of like just pressing you're telling Amazon bid on whatever you want, because sometimes it'll just remove your keywords entirely and you're bidding on something you didn't want to bid for. So I think broad modified match is a good way to find that middle ground between all of the different conversational queries that can arise, basically. And adding on to that, I think a good keyword research method could be talking to Rufus or talking to ChatGPT in the mindset of your ideal customer to see what keywords might arise that you might not have in your campaigns already.
And additionally, I think when I think how do we optimize for these large language models, it's where is the most context. And personally, I think that's in the descriptions, the bullet points, the A+ content, then also the reviews. So now more than ever, I think it's very important to not keyword stuff, but give as much descriptive wording and context on our listings as possible. To me, I think of the A+ content module, that's the Q&A section, and really utilizing that to put in as many questions and answers that Rufus could be using, or the most common query that a customer could be using for Rufus. So putting that context in there. And then also on product reviews is making sure we're addressing any big concerns with product reviews and making those changes now, opposed to waiting for October or Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So those are the two big factors that I think could drive it.
Yeah, looking at my crystal ball, I would say Amazon will probably have some more changes to enforce. Something like, what they have with the 2-part titles, for example. There will be more things where brands will have to adapt, whether it's back end or front end. But there will be more room to optimize for AI for sure.
Yeah, just for me to give my 2 cents, I am hoping, and I think that Amazon's also going to start launching more campaign types that are going to be powered by AI to hopefully then communicate with the AI that is on the actual marketplace. We're already starting to see this in DSP with some line items powered by AI. I think that that's just kind of the testing ground. And then I think as soon as they start to figure that out, they're going to bring it straight into sponsored products, which is the meat and potatoes of advertising.
Will that be an announcement at Unboxed, or is it going to happen before? We'll see. All right. Well, we had a supersized Prime Day. We had a supersized panel with supersized insights. Thank you all for coming on and talking us through what you saw this year for Prime Day. And can we also put in a petition to just rename it to Prime Week?
Yeah,
let's call it what it is. And I hope to have you back in the fall when we talk through more of the tentpole events that are happening in Q4. So thank you all, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.